07 Citizens, Black here from CAsaBLACk Gaming, and today we have quite a few things to discuss in regards to roadmap changes. Remember now that I not only track the mentioned things that were shared in their little announcement every 2 weeks, but I also track all of the changes that take place on the roadmap that are not discussed, which means we can get a better overall sense of how things are going and what we can expect to actually be completed and some idea of a time frame. Now, before we get into this roadmap deep dive, I want to first ask that if you enjoy my content and find it useful, that you please like, subscribe, and comment on this video. And if you want to, you can join my Discord where me and others are there to help new players with questions and also just to talk about our favorite ships or theories on what's coming or why things were delayed. We'd love to have you, and so with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into this roadmap for June 28th. So first up is the new feature added to the roadmap, which was shown at last week's Inside Star Citizen, which is the new mission type salvage contracts cover up, which is where you have to scrape off the hull so there's no evidence of what ship it was and to hide any illegal activities. It's a sort of gimmicky mission and not sure it will be super popular, but it's an additional option for salvaging, and so I'm down for it. As for the release view, we got more Arena Commander items switched to Committed, which is the front end update, new racetracks, new Horizon Speedway rework, 2 new dogfighting maps, and some new FPS maps and game modes as well. Now, the one piece of bad news was that the ship trespass feature was struck from 320 and will be pushed to hopefully only the next update after that, depending on what that will be. Whether a 321 or 320.1 update has yet to be announced, so we'll see. And that is it for the announced changes, but I have so much more. Well, 22 so much more to share that was changed from what I track and not what they tell us. So let's go ahead and get into the real meat of this roadmap update. So with almost every single roadmap update we also get some unpublicized changes that happened that the average player or content creator just might not pick up on, but I literally track every single item being worked on and have done so for the past 8 months now. This week we saw some pretty big shifts on items that we have been waiting for, which is to be expected, especially on the larger featured items. Let me break down each of the changes that I have been tracking so you can stay up to date on all of the features and know what to expect and not be surprised. Additional derelict settlements had been on the schedule to have their work completed at the end of June, but now this work has been extended until mid-December. Now, I believe this might be some of the work we saw a couple of months ago where they are adding more derelicts like Ghost Hollow and the 600i wreck site, which is good, and hopefully they also give up some more PvP type of gameplay features to some of those as well. These seem like something we might actually have seen for 320, but I have a feeling the team has been pulled from these to work on other items, such as another item that dovetails into a theory that I have about CitizenCon, but I'll say more on that in a few minutes when we get to that deliverable. Now, this one is weird because Asteroid Facilities was shuffled out to mid-September back on May the 3rd, but now it's been shuffled back to the end of June. So what this feels like is that the team has been tasked with working on something else, and we will see this item put back on the roadmap maybe after CitizenCon. We'll see. There was a whole slew of things centered around resource management, aka engineering gameplay, that was shuffled back, and artificial gravity was just one of those. Its date is now set for the end of October instead of mid-August. The EU team had teased that engineering is further along than we think and that it's more on the soonest side of things, and since it did not get pushed all the way back to December like some features did, there's hope we might still see it this year. Maybe. The ATC service was shuffled back from mid-August to the end of October. If you're wondering why I'm saying shuffled so much, it just sounds better than pushed back, so I'm really trying to change that. Anyway, this goes hand in hand with server meshing as the way the ATC service currently works. It needed to change with server meshing, so it's good to see it still being worked on and not just pushed back all the way to December, as it seems like something that needs to function for Pyro to go live. So this is the item that I feel like the Asteroid Facilities was shuffled back for that I mentioned earlier. The same team, the Montreal team, who is known for their outstanding work in getting stuff done, is currently tasked with 3 items. this item building interiors, additional derelicts, and underground facilities. Now, all three of these items have changes on this roadmap update, but the building interiors was something that kind of jumped into a prominent view earlier this year, a few months ago, when ISC showed off a long segment of concept art. And then we heard from the Montreal team after that episode, I think in May, where they were moving along with those pretty well and starting to work on a lot of the planning and white box and gray box and so forth. Now, my theory is that we will get to see some more advanced versions, possibly better than gray box or beyond, and maybe even have some for sale during CitizenCon. Now, there was also mention of them last weekend at the Hong Kong Bar Citizen, so that tells me it's pretty fresh on their mind. But what they said was that they'd be instanced housing so multiple people could have the same exact apartment, which I happen to be a fan of personally from other games like ESO, as it gives everyone the chance to own a popular or good location and not have to rely on being the first one to purchase it, because we see how well their system holds up to time-limited sales and availability. Anyway, that's my out on a limb Nostradamus guesswork for the next few months, so time will tell if this prediction ages well. Moving on. Here is another engineering feature moved out to the end of October from August, hoping with CitizenCon we get more than just footage, but a date to actually expect engineering. The Mission Manager app is something that has caught my attention because it will modernize the Mission app in the mobiGlas and bring it in line with how the sales terminals look with the building blocks UI that they use. So this is something I think we all are anxious for, but it was moved back from the second week of August to the third week of October. So the new interdiction scenarios have also been shuffled from mid-September to mid-November. Now I could definitely see more work being needed for this one, as it's not been referenced in something like a year now, I think. I hope it keeps on chugging along, as I'm looking forward to more of these NPC interactions to help make the verse feel a bit more hostile. So here is one of the newer missions, and one I am really looking forward to, but this one is also dependent on some other features that might not yet be ready for prime time, so I have a feeling that is why this one needed a little more time in the oven. The shuffle was not too great though, and hopefully we see this in the update after 3.20. The NPC scheduler service is one of those features that many people might not understand upon hearing that title, but it's something we all desperately want and need because it handles how the NPCs come in and out of the game, especially those for combat, which is important, and how we get better FPS gameplay and better frames per second as well. This feature's work was scheduled to end the third week of August, but that has now been pushed out to the second week of November. Alright, so this mouthful of a feature will add some life to the Verse's middle of nowhere outpost, which has quickly become some of my favorite gameplay, and I cannot wait until we have outposts that look and feel like real settlements. And this will also kind of get us ready for when we can build our own settlements, but sadly, that work was reshuffled from ending in mid-September to now ending mid-December, and I would be surprised if it's not pushed out again. But then again, I feel like these are important for Pyro, so that might be a solid date, but we'll know more in 3 to 6 months. So do you guys remember when salvaging was that feature that kept appearing and disappearing? Well, we've got a new one of those, and that is persistent hangars. It was shuffled to mid-September back on March the 8th, but now shows its date shuffled back to early May. So I think it was supposed to be picked back up this summer, but those plans seem to have been shelved, as the USPU team who handles it seems to have enough on their plate and was not going to be able to get to this. So I think it's safe to say no persistent hangars this year. Now that same USPU team is working on Bounty Hunting version 2, Freight Elevators, the Missions app thing I just talked about, and Pyro. So I think it's cool to forgive them on this one for now. Alright, so speaking of Pyro, this one was shuffled out from the first week of September to mid-November. Now, it's curious it was not moved out to December instead, but I will not give ye false hope. I fully expect this one to be worked on even after Pyro releases, so it should stick around for a while longer, but if the November date gives you some hopium, be my guest, take a hit. So with the whole C coming, and with the quantum simulation date having been the third week of September for months now, we were all hoping to see some economic changes to the game. But sadly though, this major part of it has now been reshuffled back to mid-December, so I do not think we will see much this year. But it would be nice to see Tony Z again, and I'm hoping he's in rare form at CitizenCon. And by rare form, I mean I hope he's willing to share a release time frame and not just trying to make our heads spin so fast that we forget to ask for a date. Now this one is not expected to be done this year, and maybe not until late next year if it's not pushed out more next year, so seeing this shuffled from the end of September to the end of November makes sense. Actually, it should have probably been out to the end of December, but I'm sure it'll move out later. Remember that this is just the planning stages of how refineries on ships will work. Hopefully by the time this ends, we see one of the refinery ships actually added to the roadmap with legit work being done. Now, is it going to be the Expanse or the Galaxy? Of course, my money is on the Galaxy since RSI ships is what the vehicle team have stated they are working on altogether. Alright, so here it is, the overarching resource management, aka engineering gameplay, and it's been shuffled from the end of September to mid-December. Now, while artificial gravity and life support were only pushed out to October, the main part is showing mid-December now, so I think while some of the features might be ready, the overall feature will have more work to be done, and that work will drag on into next year, so those dreams of cool multiplayer ship battles have been dashed for this year. Alright, so the Polaris was never going to be completed this year, so this was not anything to be expecting. It's nice to see it still on the roadmap, and hopefully they make some good headway this summer on it before the CitizenCon crunch hits and they have to work on the other ships that'll be ready for that one. Oof. So what you just heard was the air being kicked out of me because this one kind of hurts. Vehicle munching has now been reshuffled out to mid-December, which likely puts it into next year. Now, we had hoped to see more for the new industrial gameplay loop, but that is simply not to be this year. Now, I was worried when I heard over the weekend that the teams were still planning on how the bigger ships would be broken up, and so this one hurt, I'm not gonna lie. This one also has me working on another video that I will try to put out within the next week, so get ready and grab a tissue. Alright, so Security Network version 1 is not a huge feature, but still cool and will enhance FPS missions. This will allow gates to be put into place. I mean, not literal gates. Well, maybe literal gates, but ways to prevent you from accessing certain areas, whether that be a gate, door, or it could be a lock. It could be restricted by a passcode or a key, or maybe even reputation. Regardless, it's been shuffled from the end of August to mid-November now. Many fine players are anxiously awaiting the new underground facilities, and we will all be waiting many more months. Well, at least 3 more months now, as it was reshuffled from the end of September to mid-December, and probably beyond into 2024. Here is another part of Tony Z's gameplay economy being reshuffled. It was on the roadmap with work ending the 3rd week of August, and it's now been reshuffled to mid-November. Okay, and that's going to do it for this roadmap deep dive. There were so many changes here. I hope your head is not spinning like mine is. I will be working on this video to get it out as fast as I can, and we'll be digesting these changes and poring over them more, and we'll have a type of reaction video next week where I will dig deeper and try to see if we can figure out what we can expect for the next 6 months. For now though, take refuge in this here fair place under the malorn trees and do not be bothered by your toils or weary from all of this news. Whoopsie. Wrong IP, but seriously folks, it's summertime and things slowing down in the Star Citizen universe always happens. Anyway, remember to be kind to your fellow gamer, all who wander are not lost, and stay positive citizens.